Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome to my channel. It is day 74 in the 100-day project. If you have found me by accident, great, happy accident. And I hope that you find value here and choose to subscribe, comment, give me a thumbs up, and so on. If you are an existing subscriber, thank you so much for returning. Your loyalty and support means the world to me. Okay, this is the second time I'm attempting to do this. It was another one of those deals where, I was 3/4 of the way through and then the phone rings. Hubby is calling to say, come and help me. Now, God willing and the creek don't rise. Hopefully he'll be finished seeding in a few hours. So maybe that will put the end to those sorts of interruptions. Okay. Exhibit A. Can you tell that I've been to Costco? There's a reason I have this packaging here. Well, not only is wearing sunscreen, not only is wearing sunscreen recommended by dermatologists and to keep our skin looking as young as possible for as long as possible and prevent skin cancer and all that jazz. Let me put this aside and out of the way. The real reason I have this here is because of the packaging. And I just wanted to show through the project today that we shouldn't be too afraid of packages that have holes in them. Because in fact, holes are windows. So let me show you a few other examples. I kind of now have a little drawer where I keep these things, kind of ready to go. And I'll show you a couple of prototypes that are decorated. And then hopefully I can also show, do a bit of decorating with you. Although you really don't need me to show you how to cut and glue. I'm positive. Okay. So, it's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it. Somebody has to eat chocolate, dark chocolate, Jolly Rancher chews, and this, of course, is from a box of envelopes. So, what I typically do is, open it as carefully as I can. Now, this one was kind of, excuse me, a weird box, and then I think it kind of had a thing that opened up, and this must have been where it was glued down. So that one will need a little extra TLC. This one is pretty straightforward. I have 2 of these. Been saving them since Easter for just this project. And I'll talk more about this one in a minute. Now you can, I have a couple of these as well. Again, it's all for research and for supplies. So you can see that most of these, well, these 2 in particular, have pretty wide spines. So I guess that's something to keep in mind. Obviously it takes a lot more pages for the wider the spine, but it's also going to be such a cute little thing when it's done. So again, personal preference. So I'll move these out of the way and show you some things that I've been working on. Okay. I don't think it's been posted yet. So you haven't seen a thrifting video where I got a bunch of vintage wrapping paper. And what I did, I did the haul video, and then I thought, well, I've got to clean up and put this stuff away. So basically, what I did for all those sheets where it made sense, I just sort of, tore them to size and folded them, and voila, they become signature pages. This one I really liked. It was kind of different in that it had, this strip, happy birthday message along between these chunks of the design. So I basically used bits and pieces of it to cover this box. I think this might have been a box from pills or something. At this point, I can still decide which is my front cover, and I am leaning to this side. Now, what I would have done in the past, but I'm trying very hard not to do because it doesn't work that well, is run a piece of paper across the whole thing. Because you know that the minute you start, okay, well, two things can happen. You can either dry it flat and then run the risk of these folds cracking when you then try to bend them, or you can glue it down and then kind of gently start folding it while the glue is still wet and the paper has a chance to stretch a bit. The problem with that is quite often you end up with a little teeny tiny, well, I don't think pleat is the right word, but it's probably fairly descriptive. A little tiny pleat where, the paper bags out a bit and it doesn't, it's not quite as nice as it could be. So what I've done with this one is just butt the papers up to the fold. Now the box was a light blue, and that is fine. So I didn't bother inking or anything. The inside, of course, was a nice white. Now, see, that's another danger. Either I didn't glue that well or I ran it too close to the... Boy, you'd think that I would stop doing that. So let that be a lesson to you. Do not run your papers to the folds, because they will bind, they will lift, and they will create a headache for you. In this case, well, in the case of virtually every spine that a person does, we always have the option of embellishing or camouflaging. So we can embellish when we want something more decorative. We can camouflage when we've made a boo-boo or something has gone wrong and something is a little bit ugly and we want to hide it. So in either case, whether it's a boo-boo or an embellishment, or camouflage or an embellishment, I can cover this, after the signatures are sewn in, I can cover this spine with fabric or lace or a contrasting paper or whatever my heart desires. When we open some packaging, we always end up, okay, so if this was the box, we end up with this other side, and that's where the manufacturer has glued the box closed. So I typically save that unless it really got mangled as I was taking the box, opening the box up. I save it. So what I did in this case was cut it down so that it fits within those covers, and I covered it with the same paper. So if I choose to do a floating spine and don't want my threads to show on the outside, then I would attach them to this and then just glue this whole kit and caboodle down. Or I can just put this here and sew through it. So, again, those are choices to be made, design choices to be made as a person works through the project. So that's probably enough about this one, because unless you're, really a beginner, and if you are, congratulations, there's nowhere to go but up, and it's a very exciting time. Particularly, I think, if a person has the right mindset and think, this is fun, this is learning at its finest, and I've got nothing to lose here. So I'll put this one aside and show you something else. Now, I have had the pleasure of meeting Lorna Taylor of Tailor Made Journals. She lives about an hour or so away from me. And I bought a journal from her. And anyway, long story short, we've met a couple of times. And that was during COVID. We did it outside. Anyway, she, of course, has many lovely pattern designs, and I thought, well, why don't I just dedicate myself to using, one of her kits and, support her in that way. And so this was, I hope you can see or tell that that's a window. And this is exactly the way the box was. And it held a 3-pack of those sesame snaps, those little things that are held together with honey. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I looked through some of the kits of Lorna's that I bought and printed out, and I decided on what's it called now? I knew it in take 1 of the video. I think it's called Toile wallpaper. Set 1, if I'm not mistaken. So what I did was I just began, let me help you avoid another little problem. The packaging here was almost navy in color for much of it. And you can maybe see a smidge there. So what I did after I got a couple of pieces down and thought, boy, I can almost read through that paper. So what I did was I stopped, came to a screeching halt, and then painted the cardboard with white acrylic paint. So, like so, on that Lindor box. Obviously, it's a lot easier to do it before you already have some paper down. So then my next step was to find a piece of cellophane or acetate or packaging, clear packaging, whatever, and cover the window. So then I glued down, I picked those little cherubs there because it seemed like the orientation was perfect for the way that window goes, and then glued that sheet down. And then I just continued kind of with a patchwork thing using, the papers. The other thing I did, because typically, well, in my case, I was working on the front of the book first, or the cover first. So in order to cover the edges nicely, I wrapped them around to the other side, which means that, let me show you. Okay, so here, for instance, I had this long piece, and I wrapped it around, and there it is again, and there it is again. So it finishes off the edge. It prevents any little glued edges from lifting because they can't lift because they've wrapped around the corner, which makes the inside a little more patchworky, if that is a word. But again, it doesn't matter because there will be more decorating done. Or if I really thought, that's a bit much, I could knock back and unify it with some dry brushing of gesso. Okay, now you will see that I didn't glue my papers over the folds because, again, of the hazards. Oh, see, we got a little guy happening here. Now, this may not be that critical. I wonder if I can trim it. Or I can also try gluing it down. But usually when it folds back like that, it means that there isn't quite enough room. And again, I consider myself a fairly smart cookie, you know. So why is it that I have to... I think I'm resistant to the idea about how far you actually have to be from a fold. So I don't know. I'm not going to continue to do this much longer because it's not a good use of your time. Anyway, so that is how this looks. And again, same scenario. Can use lace, fabric, more paper to cover the spine once the signatures are sewn in. So I have a number of scraps left, I mean small pieces left that, you know, may cover pockets or do some embellishing on tags or whatever. I mean, you know the scenario. So then I had bigger pieces. Now this is a weird size because that's the size the box was, and I could have cut it down, but then I wouldn't have had much here on the side of the window. So I essentially left it intact. 4 3/4 by 4 1/2. So that is a bit of a weird thing in terms of page size. So I had some of the paper. This was the only piece, the only scrap that was kind of long enough. So basically, oh, and I should say that with all of these scraps, I spritzed them with my little bottle of, I think that's tea water. Whoa. So when you print on an inkjet printer, this is what happens when you wet the paper. And this is great because it's no longer stark white. These colors are fine with the project. So anyway, so I folded this one because it's kind of the right size. Now these little things that I had to fold in on either side, they could either be glued here and make tiny, shallow little tuck spots, or they could be left where, you know, a person just opens it up or whatever. And with these others, because they are smaller, let me show you on this side. The pages are going to be a variety of sizes. Now, if when I'm actually putting it together and have some plain papers included as well, I may decide that, well, they're all too skimpy looking. So that is where a person could easily, you know, do a hinge, do an envelope, do a page extension. But again, I'm probably trying to cover too much ground in this one little video. We're just trying to, the intent here was just to talk about packaging. So I'm going to put this aside and I'll show you the other thing. The other thing is this Lindor one. So I primed it with white acrylic paint. What you can tell on this one, that this little thing, this little Lindor thing went, encroached on the opening, as did this bunny's ear. So I thought, yeah, that would be lovely. But boy, is that also a pain when you're trying to piece papers around it. So I ended up cutting them off on both windows. Now I have to say, wait, why did I'm trying to think why I ended up having to rip this off. Okay, let me just pull in the papers that I was intending to use. So I have a number of papers that are from one or more of my wallpaper kits, as well as some other papers from some other sources. And again, I apologize that I don't, you know, I haven't been very diligent in keeping track of what's what and whose stuff is whose. So I found a piece of I'll tell you what I actually used here. You know, sometimes we get really cheap packages of business card holders. Like, business cards are practically a thing of the past. So it's got 10 of these little windows. So that size would have been almost perfect for what I needed. So I basically just cut, I don't know, can you see what I'm trying to show you here? I just basically cut one of those sections off and used a single thickness of that. Oh, and because I used to have these kinds of things everywhere, I now put pieces that, you know, of a variety of types and weights in one of these envelopes. And I have it nearby so I can tuck things in anytime I want to. So I assembled some papers. I kind of pre-sorted them. And then I started, well, my first step was to figure out what I wanted showing in the window. So I thought that would be beautiful. Incidentally, this wallpaper thing, I would have printed 4 to a sheet. So that's why it is that size. So I'm just trying to remember why I had to rip this off. You can see, I mean, it was a happy accident, I guess, that oh, I don't want it that way. A happy accident that I had to, because then that gave me a chance to cut off the, boy, that's kind of rough there. Let's see if I can do a little better. Not that I guess anyone will see it when there's beautiful stuff to look at, but it gave me a chance to cut down that bunny ear and that little oval that I was talking about. Okay, so then my next step was to glue this down. And I might as well do that. I think I was using Tombow glue, if I'm not mistaken. So the best bet here is just to, let me make sure I'm in the, oh, I have to say that when I had to stop that last video so abruptly, like virtually in mid-sentence, because that's what happens, the phone rings, although it doesn't actually ring, but it does kick out the video function. So this time I heard the little whatever it makes, the noise it makes, so that I could, you know, not spend a whole bunch of time talking to dead air. So kind of get that as straight as I can. Boy, that was probably a little too much glue. Let me just try to get some adhesion. And anyway, as I was watching that video to see, well, where did I stop? Well, could that be an acceptable way to end the video? And I thought, no, it doesn't. And then I noticed how dirty my mat was. This is clean, by the way. And just as we're waiting, I should be using, oh, this is what I got off it. And you know how I did this? I used an idea that I had seen on Mimi's keepsake video, an idea that she had gotten from somebody else who I don't remember now, using hand sanitizer, because most of us have a heck of a lot of hand sanitizer around, as a way to clean the mat. So that's what I did here. So that was one bonus. The mat looks a little cleaner now than it used to. And I just want to sort of sop this up a bit. Oh, and the other thing I noticed is I wasn't as centered in the frame as I should have been. Okay, so we will call that done. So then I thought, okay, I had just freshly glued this down. If I'm quick, why don't I lift it? No, sorry, that's not true. Well, I did lift it and remove it. But what I also did, oh, right here. Because I had two identical ones of these, I used this as a pattern for cutting some of the paper. So I know that I'm going to put this here, and rather than, you know, guess and trim and ink and all that, I actually have a piece that is going to fit perfectly because I had something like that. And then I thought, well, I can use this along here. Now that I have it that way, again, I don't want to get too close to the seam here. Yeah, well, it has to be this way, because if I had it upside down, then it wouldn't fit. But maybe, just to be on the safe side, I should reach for my vintage photo and ink both the folds and around that oval. This is kind of a dirty little thing. Maybe I'll use this cellophane sort of a guard against getting it on the actual. You know, onto the thing that is supposed to be clear surface. Now, normally I wouldn't be doing this. Oh, see, and I'm soon going to have, where's my, soon I'll have ink marks on this cutting mat, and it'll be like I hadn't even cleaned it. So I'm just, again, for the sake of moving this along, I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. I'm not going to piece everything together because, of course, you've seen it, you've done it, you saw the other examples. So I guess the point of this video, because we've all done collage on packaging to make covers. So that's not earth-shattering. But I should leave this here. I just wanted to say that sometimes if we work with what we have as opposed to fighting against it, we get, you know, we get something different. We don't get the same old, same old. So in this case, what I'm talking about are the cutouts and the openings that are in the packaging. And I guess I might as well go all the way around. See, that is the, because I'm kind of philosophically committed to not inking in front of you. Quite often I do a lot of that kind of stuff beforehand because, as you have no doubt noticed, I don't edit. I don't know how to edit. I don't have any desire to learn how to edit when there are so many more what I consider fun and exciting things to do. So, you know, it's always a bit of a balancing act to figure out, well, how much should I do ahead of time? And how much time, how much patience do you guys have for watching stuff like this when I'm forced to do it? Okay, so we know that I have at least 2 pre-cut pieces that are ready to go. Oh, I should also point out that again, I saved that 4th side to strengthen the spine, and I will cover it with something. So in this case, maybe just for ease of application, I will probably, oh, maybe I should do this too. I will just use art glitter glue. I hope that you are well. I hope that you are crafting your little hearts out. I know that it's a demanding time of year, especially for those of you who are social butterflies and, you know, get a lot of invitations to parties and barbecues and weddings and all that jazz. So it's, and of course people who are still in the workforce are also probably needing to schedule vacation, and pretty soon the kids will be out of school, although I have to say that my grandsons who live in Colorado, and I don't know if that's true for the whole state, but where they are, the school year is already over. It was over earlier this week, which when I'm taping this was kind of the sort of 24th or 5th or something off May, which of course is different than, say, Alberta schools. Well, the majority of Alberta schools. I think they were experimenting with, you know, August starts and earlier ends and so on, but to be honest, I don't know if that's really, I better ink this as well. Okay, so I'm going to glue this down, and you probably notice that I've got a bit of surplus. Now, when I cut this one out first, and I forgot that I should have probably had some to wrap around. In this case of this pink one, I do, so I will glue this down and then probably dismiss class, because again, I know that everyone is busy. I know that everybody knows how to cut and glue. So I'm going to wrap that around. Now, oh, I kind of really pulled that in. Oh, I see what the problem is. I need to trim this excess. Otherwise, it's kind of making, okay, that's going to be dry already. So because I didn't, it's hard for me to see which is, yeah, I have to trim a bit more here. So I don't know, maybe I'll end up putting a piece of glue, I keep my glue in pieces so that I can use it when I need to. Maybe I will end up putting a piece of lace or something around there just to strengthen that edge, because that is what I was saying I did with that other prototype. It makes a more finished edge. Now again, since this one is getting all this inking, it won't be the end of the world if I just end up inking the finished edge. I think what I'll do though is kind of stop there. The other thing a person could do at the end is, of course, sew around. And in fact, that might be a thing to do. Once I get this front cover covered, I could sew around the perimeter and I could sew around that window, and that would be pretty nice. So I think that's what the plan will be for this one. So I want to stop there. Let me get this shiny thing out of your way. So, you know, I've got a few things on the go here. I had this clipped together so they don't get lost. Separated at birth, you know. So, you know, by all means, look at your packaging with a new eye and set a few pieces aside. Eat some chocolate if you must. Eat some candy if you must. And then you've got, you know, a very good structure and a basis, a place to start with some covers for these cute little journals. I will say goodbye, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.